Hey, have you ever listened to a beautiful song and felt different? Not necessarily bad, but just different. This is the power of song. See, it's maybe a weird feeling of like empowerment. Makes you kind of feel not how you normally would feel, but not in a bad way. It's like a specific trait of you has been reached out to. One example of this is the song I Ah by Ado. At least in my case, when I listen to it, this song makes me feel very elated. Or it could be Hopes and Dreams by Toby Fox, which is a really accurate title because it makes you feel like you can make all your hopes and dreams come true. Or songs like In the Sea by Kensuke Ushio that really make you feel like you're drowning in your own mind. These are all examples of how song can be such an influence on traits in people. It can enhance how a certain part of you feels. So, what would happen if you came across something that could make this power a reality? Drakengard 3, also commonly known in Japan as Dragon 3, is the third title in the Drakengard series and was written and developed by Yoko Taro, including the same team that created Drakengard 1, as well as the hit games Nier Replicant and Nier Automata. This game is the prequel in the series of Drakengard and Nier, and is a sequel to the manga The Utahime Five, as well as the novella A Reign to End and A Flower to Begin, which covers the backstory of the protagonist of Drakengard 3, Zero. First, I want to cover the backstory of Zero before we move on to the Utahime Five, as this will be the start of the timeline. I also want to state that this novella is beautiful, and I'll link it in the description as well. I'll be skipping around some finer details, so I highly recommend that you read it yourself as well. One day, in the land of Midgard, a mystical futuristic city appeared out of nowhere within the Iberian Peninsula known as Cathedral City. With it, brought magic, dragons, and more ominous secrets to the land. It was an element known as Meso, and humans with high concentration of this element will undergo transformations as well, which in turn created many other species, such as fairies, orcs, and goblins. Zero was born into this world shortly after it began to be ruled by the lords of the land after the introduction of magic. This being Bast, the ruler of the land of sands, Shaxor, ruler of the land of forest, Grey, ruler of the land of mountains, and Kerula, ruler of the land of seas and leader of the lords. These rulers were incredibly cruel and cared not for the people that they ruled and only indulged in their own pleasures. At this time, Zero lived with her mother, who raised her the best she could. Yet, once the girl became of an acceptable age, her mother sold her to a brothel without a second thought. She met another girl at the brothel her age she got sold to, and they quickly became friends. The girl she met called her Rose and stated it's because of the color of her eyes. Rose then decided the girl should be called Indigo. One day, Indigo had an idea that she and Rose should steal some money and run. Rose trusted that they could pull it off, so she agreed and the plan worked. Until they reached the far side of the river. That's when Rose saw the man. Once Rose saw him, she understood what had happened. See, the man was a regular and frequented Indigo at the brothel. Indigo and the man had planned this to use Rose's hands to steal more money than kill her afterwards. Rose got lucky though. The pursuers had caught up and took her back before she was killed. Rose resented Indigo for it, however, resented her own witlessness more for trusting another person. She thought next time she'd do better and will only fend for herself. Months later after the event, Rose saw her chance. To keep everyone off of her back, she decided to slaughter everyone. She stole every cent she could find, poisoned all the men, and then killed them while they were unconscious. She then killed the rest of the underlings and women as well while they were asleep. Afterwards, her struggles didn't end though. She came across bandits. They took all of her money and yet only spared her life. Worse, she had now felt even worse failure. She decided from now on that she didn't need money. If she wanted something, she'd just take it. She could trust no one, and all she had was herself. She decided to find a man to protect her for the time being while she thought of a plan, but unfortunately, she contracted a disease. Worse, she had a bounty on her, and so the man planned to sell her off. She got wind of it and killed him. She ran and ran, stealing food, killing several people, just trying to find a way to live, but alas, she got caught. She got placed for execution and restrained to a log to be burned alive. She was there with 5 other girls who were placed there for wanting to start a rebellion. The other 4 were dead, yet the last was still alive, however with her eyes taken from her and brutally wounded. She spoke with her, describing her as a girl whose sense of justice was hopelessly unswayable. They talked for quite a while, and Rose realized that they didn't even really do anything wrong. It was unjust that they shared the same fate as her when she massacred an unknowable amount of innocents. Eventually, the last girl died. Afterwards, Rose decided she hated the world, damned it in her mind since before she could remember, and screamed. Then, while on death's door, all of a sudden she saw it. A rose-colored flower blossoming right before her eyes. She didn't know where it came from, but recognized it, as if it felt familiar, maybe because it was the same color as her eyes. As Rose died and the rain poured, the rain ended and the flower, newly bloomed, seemingly rebirthed her, giving her new life and strength. Rose grew stronger. She eliminated her captors, then ran off like she had been. She would kill all those in her way with her newfound abilities while studying what exactly it was that became of her. She became known as an intoner, someone who had become enhanced due to the flower. The flower grants her the ability to use song. The power of song could help utilize magic, enhance reflexes and physical capabilities, as well as grant them the power to summon a Watcher, a powerful entity which can only be attributed to God. Over time, she realized she wasn't just utilizing the flower, but instead, it was also using her. It was trying to take over her body and mind in order to destroy the world. After realizing this, she attempted to kill herself by driving her sword through her heart. However, noticing the hostility, the flower created 5 clones of Rose who each possessed a fragment of the flower and a fragment of Zero's personality. She tried to kill them but was too weak after stabbing herself through the heart, and in the end, all 5 girls escaped. It will be then that they will be known as 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and Rose would take on the name Zero as being the original. It was then that Zero decided to rid the world of the flower's existence for all time, even if it meant hurting her newly created sisters. What I just read to you was a short summary of A Reign to End and Flower to Begin, which is a novella covering Zero's backstory. I figured that covering the backstories would be pretty helpful going on with the rest of the videos, that way you understand why everything is kind of the way that it is, rather than just saying, oh, it's just happened like this. Next up, I want to cover the Utahime Five, which is the backstory of all 5 girls, so please stick through that, and then we'll get to the actual point of this video. Utahime Five was the group name that the clones created after their creation by the flower from Zero's suicide attempt, and were all fragments of things Zero had in her memories. Each girl had different memories, but they were all memories from someone that Zero had met throughout her lifetime. They each also had a piece of Zero's personality, however severely enhanced, like a dedicated trait. Each girl also took the appearance from a different person Zero had met throughout her lifetime. For example, 5 was based on a nun that Zero had killed, and 1 was based on the leader of the rebels that Zero had met before dying. Each one also had a curse as well for having fragments of the flower rather than the whole in turn for using the power of song. The youngest of the sisters, 5, represents Zero's lust and insensitivity towards sexual topics and just insensitivity in general. She'll kill anyone just because she thinks they're a problem, whether big or small, and is always horny. She's also extremely greedy and wants everything to herself. While she rapidly gains the things she wants, she also rapidly gets bored of it and throws it away. This meaning varies depending on what it is she got bored of, whether toys or people, yet I guess to her, there isn't really a difference. It's good to get this out of the way now, as well, that each one of the girls has some sort of sin representation of the 7 deadly sins. Now, this isn't actually canonically true that they have a sin representation in the game, but it is heavily alluded to. And so the community has kind of came with the consensus that each one represents a different sin, that they all kind of share the sin of lust. Of the 5 sins, 5 most closely represents greed. Her curse is that her breasts grow bigger each day, and hers is one that actually doesn't bother her as much as it grows her confidence higher than it already is. Next up is 4. 4 represents the pride that Zero still held on to when she was sold to the brothel. She's the only virgin among the sisters and represents what Zero could have held on to: total repression rather than total abandon. She has a holier-than-thou attitude, which only gets fueled by enforcing a chastity-based relationship with her disciple, which we'll get into later. Of the 7 deadly sins, 4 most closely represents envy. This is because of her inferiority complex and wanting to be most liked by others. She's jealous of her sisters and of Zero, and on the other end, Zero despises 4 because of that attitude. 4's curse is that her fingernails grow rapidly, and she's gained the habit of biting them every day. 3 represents Zero's emotional instability and craziness. She's paranoid, delusional, and gives off the appearance of a listlessness. She doesn't actually care about anything really. She used to enjoy cutting her hair, sleeping, and eventually sex, but as she got older, those pleasures faded and left her with obsession. Her obsession became twisted, and more so than cutting her hair, she used her scissors to make dolls, eventually turning living people into dolls. She represents Zero's instability, but also what happens when her volatile nature and detachment from human empathy get pushed to the extreme. This is why she most represents the son of Sloth. Not because she's crazy or lazy, but because she's more disassociative, caring too little about anything except her current obsession, including basic empathy. Her curse is that her hair grows rapidly and she needs to cut it every day. Next is 2. 2 represents Zero's lost love. The life that Zero could have had if she had learned to love the world and find love for herself. The novel actually exclaims that 2 is what Zero could have been. She has memories of loving parents, which is in contrast to Zero's childhood. She's the liveliest of the sisters and regarded as nicest of the intoners. She became friends with anyone, and unlike her sisters, she fell in love and wanted to start a family and relationship with her disciple, which she accomplished. She completely neglects the power of the flower and instead overindulges herself with the ideal that she can control everything in her own way. Her own way, that being in this messed up, twisted world, she could solve everything with her love. She loves too much, and in turn, later on, that itself consumes her. Of the 7 sins, she mostly represents gluttony. Her curse is that her physical strength grows stronger with each passing day, despite her appearance and personality, which gets in the way sometimes whenever she wants to embrace the kids that she took in at her orphanage. Lastly is Sister 1. 1 is the sister most alike Zero. At least, the strongest trait that she has. She is based on Zero's misconstrued sense of justice. She's intellectual and serious by nature, with a strong sense of justice constantly clashing with Zero's. She carries the most magical power of the sisters, and unlike the others, doesn't need a disciple to help summon watchers. She also has the strongest intoner mode, and even stronger than Zero's. She feels an extreme sense of responsibility for the well-being of others, and as the leader of the intoners, she takes it up as her job to lead the world to a time of peace. She talks in a very sophisticated way, contrasting Zero, and knows herself that she still needs to die to get rid of the flower permanently from the world to seek the peace that she desires. She represents the sin of pride, as she's unable to trust the fate of the world and herself to anyone but herself. She creates her own disciple in the shape of her own image and calls him Brother 1. She's so prideful that, while she still has a sex to the lesser factor that each intoner has, yet only with male 1, as she's too prideful to need anyone else for such a role. She doesn't want to rely on anyone for a perfect world and believes she alone is enough to accomplish such a feat. Her curse is that her senses grow more sensitive with each passing day, those being her touch, taste, smell, sight, and hearing. Now that we got each intoner's personality covered, let's move on to the Utahime 5 manga, and then we'll move on to Drakengard 3 finally. Again, just like a rain to end and a flower to begin, I'm going to cut this part up and link the manga in the description, as the manga itself is genuinely amazing, and I'm going to be missing a lot of finer details. The Utahime 5 is a manga written by Aishima Jun and supervised by Yoko Taro, the creative director of Drakengard 3, and illustrated by Ishii. The manga itself talks about the adventures of the 5 sisters that were created by the flower after Zero's suicide attempt. Despite the destructive nature of the flower, they decide to use their powers for good and bring overall peace to the world of Midgard. Having memories from Zero and pieces of her personality, they each instinctually knew how to utilize the power of song for enhancements, which made their superhero arc a little easier to begin. Skipping around here, their main goal was to take out the Lords of the Land, starting out with Lord Bass, Lord of the Land of Sands. After arriving at his castle, they see it decorated with the skin and corpses of countless children and slaves. He broke through his guards and navigated through the traps, including taking out a golem he controlled. After making it to Bass, one showed no mercy. She utilized the power of song to completely destroy his head instantaneously, showing off the strength that it provides to an intoner. Afterwards, Bass's former assistant Partition decided to join the intoners and guide them to Cathedral City, where they would eventually meet the other lords and come into contact with the original Black Flower. While heading to Cathedral City by boat, the sisters come across a tentacle-like sea monster. While struggling to fight it off due to being on water, one ends up getting dragged into the sea with it, and none of the sisters are able to rescue her. Fortunately, one is powerful enough on her own, and once her and the sea beast wash up on shore, she tries to take it out right there, and thinks it is done, but unexpectedly, the sea beast gets back up and tries to launch an attack onto one, who is then saved after a dragon lands on the sea beast, crushing it in one blow. The dragon's name is Gabriella, and she actually tracked down one after having encountered Zero prior. She sensed the power within Zero and decided to search out for what exactly an intoner was. I should point out now that knowledge is a dragon's greatest power, as beings able to reincarnate and keep their past memories. Since intoners were a foreign concept until Zero and subsequently her sisters, this led to Gabriella's curiosity. She sensed the same power as Zero had within one, and that's how she located her. At this point in time, though, Gabriella can now tell that one is noticeably weaker than Zero, however. She describes Zero as exerting such power even dragons consider her a monster. However, in one's case, Gabriella sees one as far weaker than herself. Their conversation, however, got interrupted by an assassin named Bardis. Bardis is strange because he arrived at the same time with Cathedral City and is known as the Gatekeeper of the Mercurial Gate, which is the gate that seals off the Black Flower. His exact purpose is unknown other than that he is the guardian of the gate, but over time it seems he forgot. He is here because the lords of the land had convinced him to track down the intoners and eliminate them, although what exactly they said to get him to do such a thing is unknown. He's an older looking man with a mechanical arm and exerts immense power. He is physically capable of taking on one and Gabriella at the same time, and any damage he is sustaining is also regenerating. While things were looking grim, one unlocks her intoner mode, also known as Utahime mode. Her song completely consumes her, enhancing her physical abilities to immense levels. With this new power, she completely overpowers and crushes Bardis in his entirety. Unfortunately for them, this isn't the end though, and Bardis seemingly regenerates, although now in the body of a young boy. It's probably a good time now to state that the info I'm about to present was never confirmed, but it is a widely accepted theory by fans that Bardis is an android, supposedly created from the future in the Nier timeline. However, this is a Drakengard 3 video, so we'll get into Nier another time. Proceeding from where we left off after his regeneration, Bardis flees back to Cathedral City, and having her energy exhausted, one collapses. The next part of the manga proceeds to focus on Zero. Most of her story is spent researching details of the flower as she already made it to Cathedral City much earlier. She realized the connection that dragons had to the flower and realized it is the only way to fully destroy it. She connects with a dragon named Michael, who indulges in conversation with her and tells her details of the flower from his personal knowledge. Now is a good time to also point out the religious illusions that the game has, from each sister supposedly representing a different sin and the dragons being represented through the names of the archangels. It's funny because the dragons being represented as archangels and the sisters being represented as sins through the flower, and dragons being the only thing to actually defeat the flower in its entirety. We'll get more into this though once we cover details through Drakengard 3. Now back to the topic at hand. After talking with Zero, Michael hears of how she wants to rid the world of the flower, and seeing that as his own destiny as well, he partners with her and decides once the other intoners are dead, he will be the one to eliminate Zero at the end. It is here when Zero creates a sword made from Michael's scales as well to better eliminate traces of the flower permanently. Going back to 1, she finally woke up after a short time skip in which Gabriella watched over her. Despite her and her sister's goals, the first to reach Cathedral City, as previously mentioned through the interaction with Bardis, was actually the Lords. Bardis had also eventually reunited with the Lords in his now childlike body, and they tasked him with opening the Mercurius Gate. However, while trying to open it, a security system that was put into place in the form of a cord, that we'll cover later, rejected his advance and teleported him away. In the meantime, the Lords decided to change plans to, at the least, ambush and eliminate the intoners together. Gabriella carries 1 to Cathedral City and on the way reunites with her sisters and Partition. After a short rest, they all ride on Gabriella towards Cathedral City, and upon arrival, instantly the Lords attack and instantly killed 3. In a panic after 3's sudden death, the sisters try to retaliate, but since they are panicked and surprised, they fail and are killed off one by one, leading with 5, then 4 and 2 simultaneously. 1 is the only one left standing among the sisters' gruesome corpses. Panicked, stressed, and overall mortified, she lets out a screeching version of her song, which resonates with the Mercurial Gate, opening it forcefully. The black flower breaks out in a seemingly liquefied, almost sludge-like state, which then grows arms and takes the body of the brutalized sisters. It puts the sisters back together piece by piece, and also takes control of 1, which then starts puppeteering them using each of their own songs to summon each girl's respective watcher. 5 summoning Fanael, 4 summoning Armoros, 3 summoning Armisael, and 2 summoning Egregori. All watchers summoned then start attacking the Lords and anyone else within range of the Mercurial Gate without reason. Gray is the first to die, and his son tries to stick together with Kerula, only to be betrayed by her taking his heart to fuel her magic to stay young. Which is ironic because then she gets betrayed by Partition, who does the same to her to keep his youth as well. Gabriella, not being possessed, then wakes up 1 out of her possession of the flower and exerts an immense amount of magic to try to save her sisters. Due to exerting so much of her own magic power, her body actually ages up to compensate and yet still doesn't work. Shortly after the situation worsens, it's actually Zero and Michael who arrive at Cathedral City, and then sends out 4 magically enchanted doves that will siphon off and control the energy of the flower within each of the sisters apart from one. At once, each watcher disappears, and Zero commands Michael to fly and attack the flower directly, knowing that dragons are the exact counter to the black flower. Having such a direct shot on it, Michael completely sets the flower ablaze, ridding it from the world entirely in that form. With the main body of the flower gone, it is now up to Zero to get rid of her sisters and herself to permanently rid the flower of its existence. While fighting one, their fight gets interrupted by Bardis, who was returned after being teleported away by the security system prior. Bardis, now not having a purpose and in this childlike state, puts easy work onto Zero, 1, and the dragon simultaneously, because at this point, Zero and 1 decide to team up for the sake of their own lives. Despite teaming up, Bardis is still able to deal with them quickly, with them knocking out Zero cold and pinning 1 to a wall. Desperate, 1 tries to tap into the intoner power she unleashed before, but Gabriella forbids it, and instead uses her wish. Dragons, when severely wounded or about to die, are allowed a final wish, which we don't know the origin of. Most dragons use this to reincarnate, as knowledge, as I said before, is their greatest strength. However, in this instance, Gabriella uses her wish for power. Enough power to defeat Bardis. However, all power comes with a cost, and the cost of that was her mind. Now, with Bardis completely destroyed and Gabriella having lost her mind, turning into a mindless beast, Gabriella turned to 1 and the others and proceeded to attack them. Michael got knocked out trying to stop her, and after pinning 1 down, there was only one thing left to do: form a pact. See, a pact in Drakengard allows humans and monsters to tap into a stronger power, combining both of their souls. There is always a cost, however, for the human in the pact on top of both souls being linked, meaning once one of them dies, the other does as well. In this case, 1's sacrifice is her ability to age any further than she is right now, which is in the body of a teenager. However, it is enough. She absorbs all the nearby energy and is able to have control of Gabriella, returning her to her usual state and gaining massive amounts of power in return. This also frees her sisters from the flower's control, and now they are seemingly in their teenage years too due to the massive amounts of energy emitted prior. Being wounded, both Zero and Michael then leave the battlefield to continue their fight another day, in which case we now move forward into the events of Drakengard 3. Drakengard 3, like Nier, has multiple endings tied to it. Each of these are different branches or different ways that the story could potentially go, and the one overseeing all of this is Accord. We're not really sure where she came from or how she even has this ability, but it's highly theorized that just like Bardis, she's from the future in the Nier universe, and she too is an android. What we do know is that she's trying to guide Zero to the best ending in order to protect these branches. This is due to Zero being known as a singularity. A singularity is a being who is able to alter these timelines due to their decisions, or technically our decisions throughout the game, and a role as bearer of the flower. So if things start seeming a little bit confusing, it's because there's an official narrative combining different events from each branch, and then some extra bits as well to make a cohesive canon storyline. However, do remember that this is mainly a story and a character analysis, so we'll be skipping around to cover each of the girls here and there without touching on the main timeline apart from the first 2 sections that we had at the beginning of the video. I guess the big question is, what is Song? Song is the main power system that we utilize while playing through the game as Zero due to her status as an intoner. In gameplay mechanics, it helps us lock onto opponents, buff our weapon, increase our health and stats, and overall just get stronger. In lore, it gives each sister immense power, enough to where each of them is revered as a god in each of their respective territories. It's granted via the flower, which is a creation of God made to destroy humanity along with the Watchers. Think of Song like your very own theme music that gives you the ability to enhance yourself and use magic. It works sort of similarly to mana in this case. It's like in Bleach, when each girl is about to power up and it starts playing number 1. Except in this case, the theme music isn't just playing for the show, but rather your own song that you sing and emit in real time to buff yourself and unlock new abilities. Everyone has a unique song, and it shows itself as a reflection of who they are and what they as a character identify as and stand for. Continuing after a short time skip from where we left off in the manga, we have now moved on to a rule under the intoners rather than the lords. with each intoner taking the place of the land where one of the previous lords resided. Each sister joins together in Cathedral City before the story begins to take out their sister Zero. Zero first takes out Partition, who we met through the manga Utahime Five, and then goes to fight her sisters. She's able to hold her own against the 5 of them until one summons Gabriel, who previously was Gabriella, but due to needing more power to stop Zero and Michael, chose to remain in their monstrous form under the new name. After Gabriel was summoned, she blasted Zero, taking her arm, and while charging up again, ended up hitting and fatally wounding Michael, who used her wish to reincarnate as Mikhail. The game's story is now about regaining Mikhail's strength and taking out each of the sisters one by one. Starting with Five, again, she had been given rule over the Land of Seas due to the people residing there being the most troubling and rowdy of all. Naturally, she reined them in due to her domineering attitude and overwhelming strength, so they loyally served her. Five's song can be heard before your fight with her when her disciple Dido begins to summon her watcher Phanuel. Her song is like a roaring operetta that starts to lead into something like a force of domination. It's high pressure and has a lot of weight behind it, which fits with how she loves to dominate over others.
Behold, the 5th song, grand light of antiquity, the great power made manifest, the ceremony of glorious arrival. Burn into thine eyes the punishing lance of divine retribution. I, Dido, summon thee in my name. Phanuel, arise!
How tacky can you get?
Five represents greed, and her song reflects this insatiable greed she possesses. Her greed isn't that of having, though she is greed and fully embodies it in the aspect that constantly wants. Five wants everything. It's that feeling of wanting she craves, but when she has something, she gets bored of it and throws it out. She lives an extremely self-indulgent lifestyle where she enjoys chasing beautiful accessories, elegant clothing, and lavish meals, but as soon as she gets it, she decides to get rid of it as it now bores her now that she has actually obtained it. Her curse represents this almost perfectly. Five's curse, as stated earlier, is that her boobs seemingly grow each passing day, which actually boosts her confidence more and more. Despite how big they get, they are never a problem for her, and she doesn't mind it being any bigger the next day. It's ever growing, just like her insatiable desire to chase her own greed. From the manga, we know that each intoner was also given a disciple, which was a bird that Zero enchanted and siphoned the flower's power from each of the sisters apart from one. Except, due to the magic, the doves were given human forms. The disciple's job is to control their intoner's power of song and is loyal to their intoner no matter what, although the way they control it is directly tied to each girl's sex drive. In Five's case, this was probably the worst possible thing for her disciple and best possible thing to her. Five loves to chase her own greed, the feeling of wanting anything she wants for her own insatiable desires, as we've established. Each intoner also carries heavy amounts of lust, along with their respective represented sin, due to sex with their disciples being a natural regulator of their power. Five, however, is the most horny of the sisters, and this does have to do with her naturally overflowing confidence as well. She regularly forces herself upon her disciple Dido, and the game implies that this is non-consensual. Due to being her disciple, Dido cannot refuse Five's advances. Internally, Dido resents Five and thinks of her as cruel, however, Five doesn't care. She just sees this as playful and utterly harmless. While Dido resents Five, Five thinks of him as her favorite plaything that she can use as she pleases to try satisfying her own desire. While Five can be known as the horny one, on the surface, there's a deeper undertone that her insatiable greed creates many victims, including upon herself. She can never be truly satisfied, and yet takes more and more from others just to throw it all away, like a thirst that can never be quenched. This is even shown through her watcher that it's just a beast. It has no gimmick and no reflection of Five herself, but rather just a beast with raw power that can't satisfy anything she wants. Even when fighting Zero, she doesn't stall or try to fight, he just summons it and lets it run wild. During her death, after defeating Phanuel, Her last moments include her pleading for her life. Then comes the ironic part that her greatest possession, the one she didn't throw away or get bored of, was the one to eventually take her life. She gets back up and tries to let out one last burst of song, only for Dido to strike her down and cut her in two. Despite this, Five isn't done yet. She actually gets back up and comes back later as a mere husk. She gave up everything for the sake of wanting to live. It goes to show, even in her final moments, just how insatiable her greed was to give up everything just for the sake of living, even if as nothing but a zombie.
See you in hell. Sister.
The next sister that we get to after Five is Four, who represents the sin of envy. She was given the Land of Mountains due to her random outbursts, as the Land of Mountains had the least amount of people residing in it. The difficulty with Four is that her envy is masked behind her outlook of being superior rather than Five, who flaunts her greed openly. Four doesn't simply state that she's jealous or envious of the things others have, but rather that she is superior for her lack of it or not wanting it. She covers her envious nature behind a fragile superiority complex. This is the basis of her nature as a character, and it extends to even her main selling point, which is despite having just as lustful a nature as her sisters, she remains a virgin. This is primarily because of her repressed nature, but also due to her forcing herself to remain as such to seem better than them. It's not chastity due to actual belief, but rather a forced performance to seem more virtuous than her sisters and have something to boast about. Unlike Five and the dynamic between her disciple, Four is quite the opposite, with her enforcing a chastity-based relationship with her disciple, Decadus. What's interesting is also, unlike Five's disciple, Decadus doesn't really mind this, as it fuels his kink of masochism. He takes Four's genuine plea to see her as a person as nothing more than deliberate denial to fuel his own masochism. What's more upsetting is that the disciples are supposed to be the closest person to an intoner, and while Decadus could help her through this and be able to see past her forced performance, he instead reinforces it, while being such a person to be close to her. It proceeds to get even worse as we explore the character deeper and start to realize the flower actually implanted false memories into Four's mind to get her to hate her quote-unquote parents. This ties back into each one of them representing a fragment of Zero, in which case 4 represents how Zero had felt before being sold to the brothel. Her envy is what's left of that fragile pride because all else has long since disappeared and pride was the only thing left to hold on to. Contrasting Five's domineering song as a mindless beast, 4's song actually manifests itself as a defensive barrier. She's able to utilize shield magic, and the watcher she summons is named Armoros, which takes the form of magic cores that keep her flying fortress from falling. This directly mirrors her personality as trying to build walls to protect the very fragile self-image she has left, and how she lifts herself up to try and be above others with a sense of false virtue.
You can't! You can't! You can't!
Behold, the fourth song! Impenetrable shield of antiquity! The rare power granted to our own. The stout citadel that protects us. Cast your blighted sins upon these very skies. I, Decadus, summon thee in my name. Armorous, uphold!
She's getting away! God damn, she's stubborn.
This is further proven by how she doesn't initially want to attack Zero, and in fact, after the first fight at Cathedral City, she's had constant nightmares, only growing her inferiority in her own mind. Her envy, just like Five's greed, gets pushed more than the normal amount, and like her sister, this causes her to set others as collateral damage to her own envious nature. Just like reading her own envy clouded by a false superiority complex, it's this very superiority complex we have to look at to see how her envy allows her to dehumanize others and unleash real cruelty. When she doesn't see people as worth it, or other races that aren't human who she doesn't value, she's able to completely regard any sort of empathy for them. Envy doesn't just make her insecure, but rather willing to dehumanize others just to feel superior. And her song perfectly reflects this.
Zero! You're here! You came back! It's really you, isn't it?
What happened? What about our sisters? Where are they?
Everything's going to be okay. We don't have to fight anymore, Zero. Everyone else is waiting for you.
Where are they waiting?
3's in the land of forests, and 2's in the land of sands. They're both...
Thanks for the info.
No! I thought you were back!
I can't believe you fell for that bullshit! You honestly thought I'd have a split personality? Stupid son of a bitch!
Continuing the trend of comparing and contrasting the last sister, 3 does just that as her representation of the Son of Sloth. 3 is, well, in simple terms, lazy. However, we know by now that these characters are more than just simple, so let's go into more detail on what this could mean. 3's laziness isn't just your typical laziness or procrastination, but rather she's listless, lethargic, paranoid, and often delusional. She obsesses endlessly over her fixation, completely neglecting everything else in the process. Of all the sisters, she's probably the least fit to rule very openly, which is most likely the reason that she took over the land of forest, because it has the least human population, with many other races living there able to self-sustain. At one point, she even goes as far as to serve people food raw, because cooking it is too much of an effort and will take time away from her fixation. And that right there is what makes her sloth so dangerous. It isn't that she does nothing, it's that she cares about nothing except the one thing she's currently fixated on. Unlike 4, who tries to mask her flaws, 3 has a very cruel and open hobby. She usually seems very unresponsive most time, however it's only whenever she's not talking about her dolls. 3 has started a hobby in which she creates dolls, and you can see this in her diary, where she talks about them. Interacting with the diary, you can see that 3 is usually very dead-eyed and listless about everything. But when it comes to her dolls, she begins to talk rapidly and at an extended length in a very intelligent way, like the person who just found their new favorite fandom and wants to go on and on about it. Kinda like this video. She seems almost innocent when reading, but looking closer we can see how cruel it actually is. See, her dolls are actually living people that she tortures and kills in cruel, gruesome ways that she converts into biological soldiers. They are less dolls and more so human experimentation. This, like 4, is where her sloth becomes more than just a sin for her, but creates real-time victims. It's this same slothfulness that allows her to massacre others and commit mass atrocities. For some of her perfect soldiers, you read that she has tortured and killed 56 humans as stated by her disciple Octa, who has never once approved of this. Due to her slothfulness though, she doesn't see this as an atrocity at all. She lacks any drive, including basic empathy for others, and thinks of people as nothing but dolls that she can toy with for her own interest. Like the other two, 3 has a unique dynamic with her disciple, but hers, like 4, is also self-destructive. See, one thing I did mention was that by having sex, the disciples can control and siphon the power of the flower. But what I failed to mention was that this also lowers the mental toll that the flower places on each intoner as it slowly tries to invade their mind. Due to the disinterest of intimacy at all from 3, Her mental state worsens even more, which likely has a part in why her slothful nature has gotten this bad in the first place. What's kinda sad is that unlike Decadus or Dido, he is not punished or weaponized or even recognized as an existence in the first place. I stated earlier that the disciples are supposed to be the closest to an intoner, but in Octa's case, he is deprioritized and not seen at all by Drake. Despite this slothful nature, she wasn't always this way, and there was a point in time she cared so much about her sisters that she would cry for them, like when one reunited with them after being dragged into the sea. It proves that this slothfulness wasn't originally her baseline personality, but rather something she grew into and likely got the doll making hobby from Bass. This dark switch, however, was more likely due to the flower's influence, in which 3 and 4 had the worst of it due to the lack of intimacy they had with their disciples. Her watcher is Armisael, which, just like her hobby, takes the form of an army of doll-like creatures that don't necessarily fight, but rather swarm and explode. It goes to show how she completely discards others once their use has run out and toys with them while she's interested. While 5's song displays raw offense, and 4's song builds protective defenses, 3's song is rather all-consuming, like a type of reverberation. Unlike 5 and 4's outburst, it's a laughter that rolls your head, causing you to lose all thoughts of your own. It doesn't just fight, but rather converts living things into objects, which directly mirrors her core mechanic as a character.
My lady, you must put an end to these atrocities.
You seem to be somewhat confused, Octa. A disciple doesn't choose his intoner. An intoner chooses her disciple.
Damn you! Behold the 3rd song! Quickened puppets of antiquity! The raging demon's deathly gaze! The army of heretics that rejects the natural cycle! Render into ash the powers of reason and order! I, Octa, summon thee in my name! Armisael, invade!
The next sister, 2, is the most one that's interesting to me, because she is fundamentally different from all of her other sisters, but still shares some similarities with them. The sin she represents the most is gluttony, but like 4, except more so, it's really well hidden in the fact it doesn't really read as gluttony at all at a first glance. 2 is the nicest of the intoners, and it's that kindness that gives her ownership of the Land of Sands. It was given to her in hopes her optimistic attitude could do some good in that barren land. She is very warm and protective, and unlike her sisters, she is deeply loved by her disciple Scent. However, once you start to look deeper at this kindness, you can really start to see where gluttony fits in. Gluttony is an insatiable hunger, but that doesn't mean it has to be for food. In 2's case, it's an insatiable hunger for love. She's a glutton for love and reassurance and constantly needs to be told that she's wanted. However, the fear that she isn't truly liked or needed despite being surrounded and constantly told by people who love her is exactly what the gluttony actually is. Unlike the others, especially 4, her sin is the one that most looks like a virtue on the surface and is honest, unlike 4's theatrical virtuousness. However, it's that exact reason that her downfall hits the hardest of all the intoners. No matter how much love is given to her, it will never truly be enough, and she will always need more. This is displayed in the form of her relationship with her disciple Scent. Unlike the other intoners, 2 and Scent genuinely love each other, and have the closest thing to a healthy relationship out of every character in the game so far. It's this bond, however, that makes her downfall so hard to watch. She's also the only intoner whose army is made entirely of volunteers. What's even more interesting is that she personally decides to defend them herself because she doesn't want to see them get hurt. Earlier, when I stated she had kids, I didn't mean kids of her own either. However, they are like her own kids. C2 oversees an orphanage, where she would take in kids that had survived war through her travels with Sint, and take them in and care for them as her own children. She's never had parents of her own, and does everything she can to protect them. However, growing inside of her is a deeply rooted fear. I didn't cover much of 4 or 3's curse in that one, as they didn't really affect her personality or lifestyle in a major way. However, for 2, her only wish is to live a normal life, being able to spread kindness and protect those she cares about. What's unfortunate is the flower growing inside her, growing her power and slowly trying to take control of her body and mind, is made very apparent to 2, especially with her everly increasing strength. It's that fear that the flower uses to grow the power of song within her uncontrollably. Ultimately, due to some decisions used by Sint in order to protect and heal the children, the flower ends up using the power of song from 2 to mutate the children, transforming them into monsters and forcing her to kill them one by one. It's at this point that you realize her gluttony isn't written in a way that she wants too much for herself, but rather that she loves so intensely it becomes destructive and makes victims of those that she loves. Unfortunately, this isn't the end of it either. The children that have yet to be killed then turn into one big amalgamation known as the homunculus. It's lost its sense of reason, and even when Sint, her lover and disciple, tries convincing her that it's no longer her children, 2 responds by saying, "And why are they still screaming, still crying, still calling out to me?" And this here solidifies the fact that even when they are turned into monsters, she can't let go, despite her not letting go causing this in the first place. The saddest part of all is that it's her lack of containing her love and power that caused all of this. 2's fate is the most devastating because of the fact it was the most quiet. She was the kindest of the sisters and yet was reduced to nothing but a shell of her former self, due to the same love that made her so lovable in the first place. Her watcher, Egregore, like the others, ties into 2's aspect of gluttony along with her song. Her song can summon Egregore, which takes the form of water-based armored giants, as well as a spider named Raphael. There's no real visual metaphor, but rather the substance of what it summons. The spider, like 2, is a mother, while Egregore takes the form of water, which can constantly overflow, and neither can be fully contained. Her song is a cry. The cry of a broken mother, the cry of someone who has lost everything due to the one thing she truly believed in: her own love.
All right, milady. Open up and say ah. Yes, perfect. Just like that. Keep it up. Behold, the second song, Great Fist of Antiquity. The blood-wind storms that slash through fate, the steely hand that has sworn allegiance. Cross the countless swarms of writhing dead. I've sent, summoned thee in my name. Egregore, dance!
In the end, with her final moments of control, 2 kills herself, now knowing the dangers of the flower, and deciding it be the ultimate sacrifice and to go see her children again. It's also shown later on is that her lover, Sint, sacrifices himself as well to finally be reunited with 2.
Lady 2. What is this?
It's a trap! Run!
Was this always her plan?
What divine punishment!
Don't act so goddamn happy, freak!
Yes. I'm here now.
The last of the Utahime Five is One. One is more complex than the other sisters. Her representation of pride is quieter and far more sophisticated than the other's sins. She completely parallels Zero in her pride. She speaks with more composure and complexity than Zero's crude nature and generally maintains an even tone. Despite her composure, pride still steers her decisions, especially when confronting Zero directly. Where 5 and 4 have their sins displayed outwardly, One's pride operates more so as competence. She is genuinely the most capable, most responsible sister, and the intoner with the most control, but that is precisely where her sin initially stems from. One's sin doesn't make her arrogant for its own sake to thrive off of her, like how the flower burrows in others. It's rather an inability to let anyone else bear the weight that she decided is hers alone. One functions as the protective older sister. Not only does she initiate the plan to overthrow the other lords, but she is also the one who divided the territories among the sisters and protected them all this while. Her territory represents this too, as One resides in Cathedral City, the center point. The most telling of her pride and authority is her lack of a disciple. It's nothing too crazy other than she just didn't need one to control her power, especially after the pact she made with Gabriella. Despite not needing a disciple, she still sought a person to bond with and created an exact clone of herself. Not because she needed anyone else, but because there was nobody else that could maintain such a position but herself. The in-universe guidebook even directly addresses this as narcissism dressed up as responsibility. She framed it as protecting others, but the real truth is that she can't trust the outcome of anything that isn't from her own hands. The clone created from one of her ribs was deemed Brother One, and would be used as her disciple stand-in and a manifestation of her pride as an entire other person. In the meantime, One still had a pact with Gabriella, and was the closest thing to a personal connection One had with anyone else. It was this connection that would lead One to further close herself off more and trust only herself to handle things. Reason being, as stated earlier, Gabriella decided that how she was at the moment wasn't strong enough to defeat Michael, and instead needed to revert it back into Gabriel. It was a tragic moment in the sense that the only person One ever thought to rely on simply thought they weren't dependable enough. So now One depends on nobody but herself. From a moral standpoint as well, One's pride is seen as justice from her point of view. Let's think about it from her perspective, the story so far. You just brought world peace, protected your people, assigned them new and better leaders in the form of your sisters, and now you're trying to stop a rogue from murdering your sisters, your only family. In One's case, she's not wrong to see herself as a hero. However, only we know the actual story due to seeing it from Zero's eyes and knowing the flower needs to be destroyed. We are the villain, despite the fact that what we are doing is ultimately right. Both are just in their own sins, and yet neither can be technically morally correct, with Zero killing living beings and One being a walking weapon. This sets up One as one of the perfect final bosses, with her pride-driven insistence that she alone can hold the world together. Once the final fight is starting to near its end, Gabriel and Mikhail kill each other. It's after this moment that One breaks all her composure like in her younger years and lets out a raw outburst of rage. It hits hard because throughout the entire story, One has held her composure, showing that she can handle all of the weight. But once Gabriel dies, the mask she shaped in pride slips off completely, and what's left is just a girl who wanted to live.
Zero! I know you know this! If you want to kill an intoner, you need the power of a dragon!
Fuck! You did it. You actually...
Zero, I messed up.
No.
This fits perfectly with her curse because her curse made it so she couldn't age. Despite this mask that she built herself, she's always just been this teenage girl. She lets out an outrage, completely going back on the composer she once had. She curses Zero and speaks in a vulgar tongue, ironically just like Zero. Her song is the clearest embodiment of control and power equally. She has enough raw power that she doesn't need a disciple to summon a watcher at all, and enough control to summon multiple without losing her mind.
Abdiel, sing for me.
It maps back into her own sin that she alone can hold power without a container, without help, and without cost. That what she believes in about herself as a person is correct. Until Gabriel, the one last sliver she was holding onto, dies, and the story proves her otherwise. That she, just like she's telling Zero in the final fight, cannot do it alone. That this mask she made was only temporary, and that she will forever be this little kid. The fight drags on, and both unleash the raw power of their song, unlocking their intoner mode. Both songs raging back and forth, competing on the same track like a duetting solo. With the Utahime Five covered, we move on to the finale, the last of the intoners, Zero. Zero has already been mostly covered in the section covering her novella, and doesn't actually build much development after that through Drakengard. However, there is one thing she did build: trust. Her dragon, Michael, later reincarnating as Mikhail, has been the sole sense of trust for Zero. Like One, Zero's dragon was her weak point, and once Mikhail and Gabriel died, Zero, like One, let out an outburst of pure rage because to her, Mikhail wasn't just the means to an end of the flower or a tool, but rather the one person she could trust to have her back. This is the part where the branches take the most effect. So I'll cover the canon one first, and then afterwards, final song. Starting with the canon ending first, after defeating One and killing her, Zero, with no dragon to kill herself with and losing her only real companion in the process, decided it'd be better off to save Mikhail and made a pact. Through the pact, Mikhail did indeed come back, but this time with the flower in tow, now sharing an eye like Zero's. Unfortunately, it was short-lived due to One's backup plan. Brother One.
So this is... Goodbye.
Yeah, it is. Mikhail. It's over. Now I... One. But how?
Brother. I'm One's brother.
Brother? That's impossible.
You wouldn't know. You only had your 5 sisters. But in the same way you created your sisters, your sister 1 created me. I was a failsafe in case you managed to kill her. I was her final weapon. See the sword? It's made from a dragon's fang. That means it can kill an intoner, right?
I see.
You have no one to blame but yourself, murderer!
I don't blame anyone. I just want to kill the intoners. All of them. You think after all this, I intended to survive? The world doesn't work that way. At last, it's all over. Mikhail. Thank you.
She's dead. Zero is dead.
Brother 1 had snuck up and killed Zero, subsequently killing Mikhail as well since they had just formed a pact. However, with no Sister 1, Brother 1 was ultimately lost and confused. Instead, he decided that he looked so much alike Sister 1, it was better that she lived through him. He created a cult, unbeknownst to him, known as Cult of the Watchers, which he and Sister 1 as the 2 figures in the cult symbol, the 3-eyed twins. And it's this plot point that will then lead us into the first Drakengard and next game in the timeline, which we are not covering in this video. However, there is one last part that I want to go back to, and it's the other branch ending with the final song. In this ending for Branch D, Zero, with the help of Accord, succeeds in killing 1 and subsequently Gabriel. It is here where the flower now blooming through Zero has to be eliminated by Mikhail in one final battle. This is widely known from fans as the final stretch. The song becomes fast-paced, and each intoner emerges from the flower for one final song united together. But then the tempo starts to decelerate as the story slowly comes to an end. From the beginning, this was the end goal, a suicide mission of sorts to kill her sisters and then herself. Despite them all being weapons from the flower, they were still a family in a sense, and now will be destroyed together as they end their last and final song. Drakengard 3, a story of a girl and her sisters born in a world that was unjust from the beginning and each wanting to survive. The hand they were dealt was an unfair one, being born of a weapon they could not control, starting from their birth unto their death. The struggles and hardships were many, and part of me looking back can't help but feel sad for them. Each one fueled by their own way of living that a helping hand extended out could have saved, and yet, even if they were eventually saved, it would be an even sadder end that they had to die still due to the flower. I think that's what makes Yoko Taro's games so interesting, because they're never right or wrong. People can do good, and people can do bad. There's more than one way to understand the story, and Yoko Taro shows this using song. From the beginning, Song had been used as a tool in some moments, and other moments it was completely encapsulating for one's body and mind. But the most intriguing part of it is that each song was different, and you can hear it in the way each intoner played their song. It represented more than just a piece of them, but rather their whole. Fives was a roar, fours was a screech, threes was a confining laughter, twos was a psychotic break of laughter, and one had times where it was fully composed, but the truth was that her actual song was her outburst that she represented in the manga and in the game at the end of her fight. Her outburst each time she broke the cell she confined herself in was the one that gave her the most strength and affected her the greatest. It was the times where she was the most emotional that she let that version of her song out. As for Zero, it was all of the above. Each of her sisters was a fragment of herself, and at the end, we got to finally experience what the song was actually like, staying on rhythm and emitting it from ourselves as we play it from the flower. The flower actually greatly shows this, as Zero is in the middle, and each of the other intoners is on the outside. They're each representations of fragments from her own song. Playing the final song, you realize that this was Zero's song all along. It's not like a song that will play from the outside, or how we heard any of the other intoner songs. This was rather Zero's theme. We played it like this because we played as Zero throughout the entire game. This was our center point, the entire song that we were missing, and we can only hear when all of the other intoners, all the other fragments came together. The moral of the story is that people are more than just the sum of their parts, and each intoner, each one of the Utahime Five that we've seen, is what happens when a part of a person gets out of control and gets boosted to a higher degree. You need to manage that between yourself and all the other aspects of you. You can't close out one part and greatly amplify another without there being consequences. Humans are better as a sum rather than their parts. So I guess the real question after all of this is, what does your song sound like?